comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey, now blue sky shining down. Let your feet don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day. Oh, coffee steaming, a smile breaks free. Simple joys are enough for me. Stones roll out, but I don't mind. Sun's still waiting on the other side. Turn it up, feel the sound. Good vibrations all around. Hey, now blue sky shining down. Lift your feet, don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky. Wake up, sunlight tapping on the door. Feels like I've been here all before. Radio humming, the world feels right. Every little thing's in tune tonight. Shadows fade, the truth comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey now, blue sky shining down. Lift your feet, don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day.
Hey, good morning. You're listening to the Conservative Cat Show. So do appreciate you tuning in today and early morning. It's about 6:30. Sorry, guys, I've been late the last couple of days. You guys know I'm visiting my folks in Illinois. Studio looks a little bit different. Good morning. Happy Friday. We've got so much to jump into, so I'm just going to do it, if that's all right by you. I know you're busy, so let's dig in. The truth is coming out now. I didn't talk about the Minneapolis Mom. I talked about her a lot. Renee Nicole Good, but I didn't talk about who she was as a person because I just didn't have enough information yesterday morning. So today we have plenty of information, and yes, it confirms everything you suspected. So I talked a lot about the wife yesterday because she was caught on film. She was filming Renee. Apparently her name is Rebecca. They're lesbians. And she was filming her wife in the vehicle, encouraging her. She was caught on tape. She was in a flannel shirt. Total tragedy. You know, she saw her wife die, her spouse die. I know it's a total tragedy, but at the end of the day, would you put your spouse in a situation where they were going to get into trouble? I talked about how, hey, my spouse, if we are walking around town and there's traffic lights, the stop sign, the orange hand, my husband would be like, no, we're not going to jaywalk because, you care about that person and you don't want them to get in any kind of trouble. And that's the extent my spouse would go to ensure that I'm not putting myself into dangerous situations. And in fact, Rebecca, the wife, I think that's her name, she was caught on tape saying it's my fault. I shouldn't have brought her here. Now we've learned a lot about Renee. So she's not this Minneapolis mom. She's not like a goody two-shoes. I suspected like an existing terrorist group that we kind of already know, like Antifa. I would go as far as to say, like, I think there's like something called Code Pink. There's a few of those far left organizations out there that are terrorist groups, but this one isn't designated as a terrorist group, and it looks like that it could possibly earn that designation here very soon, and that's my prediction. It's called Ice Watch, and it exists sort of online and on Reddit, but it also exists in like nonprofit organizations, schools. There's just an apparatus going on where people are joining their local Ice Watch. So it's organized, it's coordinated. They train people to go after ICE. So there's like training, there's meetings. So this was, I believe now we have enough information to say it was a coordinated attack on federal agents. So we're going to get to that. Plus, there's this employee at this Minnesota Marriott. There was a Minnesota McDonald's. They had security planted right outside. He had a gun on his hip, and he was ordered not to allow ICE agents or federal law enforcement into the McDonald's. Like I told you yesterday, that this is because Tim Walz is kind of crapping bricks right now. They're distracting you with the Renee Good story. They're distracting you with anti-ICE protests. Actually, I think Walz, Frey, Jacob Frey, the mayor there in Minneapolis, I think that they're riling people up, agitating, getting people excitable, so that way this dominates the headlines and we don't talk about the elephant in the room, which is that Tim Walz is possibly going to be arrested. The House Oversight Committee, they are kind of recommending criminal charges at this point. We talked about that extensively yesterday. We saw an audit report, a scathing audit report that had come out, where they are covering up the fraud. So they're creating documentation for these non-government organizations that they funnel taxpayer dollars into. And you're supposed to, the Behavioral Health Administration, they were supposed to go to these nonprofits, check in on them, make sure that they're actually providing the services to the taxpayers that we're paying them for. And there were no such reports that existed. And Legislative Auditor Office, the Office of the Legislative Auditor, found this out, that there was no documentation. And then all of a sudden they began falsifying documents to try to cover this up. Okay, so this is huge. I know a lot of you commented, we've heard this before. This is the same movie where, people are going to get arrested. And I tend to sympathize with those commenters, because I'm mad at Donald Trump right now. I mean, come on. The DHS, he's got to get the DHS in there, really get them to arrest Tim Walz. He's an open rebellion of the United States of America. Governor J.B. Pritzker's on that list. Brandon Johnson, Jacob Frey. You got to go in there and you got to arrest these folks. Start invoking the Insurrection Act. Okay. Deploy the Marines into some of these sanctuary cities. I know in Illinois, they shut it down, the Supreme Court, him deploying the National Guard, but they kind of gave him an opening in that ruling to deploy the Marines first. Hey, you can't deploy the National Guard or federalize the National Guard right away, but you can use Marines, the 82nd Airborne. Like, why don't we do that, Trump? I'm so annoyed with Pam Bondi, with Kash Patel. I mean, this has been going on for a decade, the fraud in Minnesota. We've covered that. It goes all the way back to 2015. Yes, there's been convictions, but I mean, over the decade, I think it's mainly the small fish. I want the corrupt politicians. I mean, yes, I care about the Somali fraudsters, and we need to go after them and charge them and then deport them. But I really want to know how deep this goes and what the politicians knew when. I want to know what they knew and when they knew it. And I want to see them brought to justice. So anyway, that's my rant this morning. I brought that up because the employee of this Minnesota Marriott, sorry, I went on a tangent, because Minnesota right now, they are full-blown crapping bricks. Tim Walz, he announced that he's not running for re-election. And you've got hotels denying ICE agents. You've got this employee actually stealing ICE agents' infos, like their information, like their personal information, and then they are doxing them online in Reddit's titled ICE Watch. So Kash Patel has got to get his head out of his butt. We've got to start designating these groups for what they are, domestic terrorist groups. They did it with Antifa. This is ICE Watch, yet another, I think, a domestic terrorist group, a far left domestic terrorist group. And I also want to talk about what Hilton Hotels did, because they actually did the right thing. And, you know, I've gone after Bud Light. We've gone after Jaguar, Cracker Barrel, some of these corporations for going woke. I want to applaud corporations when they do something right. They actually took a wrecking crane, like a crane, came out to the Minneapolis Hampton Inn, and you guys are aware of the story, and I'll provide you the background once we get there. But this Hampton Inn, they removed the sign, and Hilton Hotels did the right thing. This Hampton Inn, they were denying DHS officers, not just ICE agents, but DHS officers, a stay at this Hampton Inn. And then Hilton came out with a statement and said, well, we're open to all and we don't discriminate. And then somebody, an independent journalist, an influencer, went in there posing as a DHS officer. And the management behind the front desk had said, you know, he called the owner and that they were still not allowing DHS officers to stay at the hotel. So despite Hilton coming out and saying like, hey, we're sorry, we're working with this hotel, their franchise, we're working with them and we're working with DHS. And it turns out that Hilton, despite issuing that statement that they were going to allow the DHS officers in, this Hampton Inn went rogue, I guess, and still denied ICE officers, DHS officers a stay at the inn. So we're going to get to all of that. Plus, I know this is a very packed show today. You won't want to miss a second of it. Be sure to subscribe and never miss a second of the Conservative Cat Show. $10.9 billion. The state of Illinois stole that from your town. Okay. And they are blaming your mayor, your local officials for, you know, not being able to keep up with the infrastructure. And to an extent, yes, certain municipalities, their priorities are all out of whack, and I'll get to that. But this is a big deal. Illinois is stealing revenue, promised money. What was promised to these municipalities, the state of Illinois is being greedy, and they're taking that money. So we're going to get to that. But let's get to the Minneapolis Mom, shall we? So the left's Minneapolis Mom, their narrative here is quickly fading. It is fading fast. And we have more information about Renee Nicole Good, the woman who was shot and killed Wednesday after she used her vehicle as a weapon. We talked about that. This is a deadly weapon. A vehicle can be considered legally a deadly weapon if you can prove intent of that individual wielding that weapon, much like Sonia Massey in Illinois. I watched the footage there. I believe the officer acted in self-defense there as well. Clearly, she was wielding a pot of boiling water. He had the gun in her face, and he said, put the water down. She was screaming all kinds of ramblings. She was mentally ill, and she would not put the water down. And she lifted her arms and projected water out of the pot, and he shot her. So pot of boiling water can mean, if intent is proven, the definition of a deadly weapon, wielding a deadly weapon against an officer. Now, that case got so politicized, and much like the George Floyd case, got politicized, that officer got screwed. But this is a deadly weapon, this vehicle, right? And she had her tires turned straight for a period of time. The officer was in front of her. You can see the gun shots through the front windshield. Now tell me, how in the world does he get a bullet through the front windshield if he's not in front of the car, right? But a lot has come to light about Renee Nicole Good. She is not this new in town gentle soul that the left is, spinning this narrative. She's not a gentle soul at all. Okay, Good was reportedly a rabidly anti-Trump radical, TDS to the max, and she was trained. Like I said, I hope that the Trump administration, gets their heads out of their butts and they start moving quickly on this, designating this group as a terrorist organization, a domestic terrorist organization. It's called Ice Watch. So she was trained as what we call an Ice Watch warrior. These people exist. Very funky and weird. I don't know. These people spend way too much time online. I struggle. You guys know that this is my day job, and I just I don't even spend that much time online. And I focus on the news. I read about this stuff every day. These people exist online. They spend way too much time online. And she has been aggressive. So this is a report. She's been aggressive with officers in the past, federal agents in the past, and she was trained as an Ice Watch warrior. So she knew exactly what she was doing when she behaved aggressively toward these officers. Okay, she was a trained warrior. So Democrats and their leftist foot soldiers, the people in Antifa, Code Pink, now we have another group called Ice Watch. Their foot soldiers have spent the last couple of days tying themselves really in knots, trying to cast blame for Good's death on ICE agents and the Trump administration. They are really struggling with this, especially now that we have information about who Good was, who she was. Now, everybody was claiming that she's just a simple mom, a Minneapolis mom, and she was unfamiliar with the area. Where they got that from, Rebecca, the wife, she's talking with a guy who was filming the incident. And the guy calls out and he says, does she have relatives? And she says, no, we're new here. Here's what I really think happened. They fled to Canada, and I'm going to get to their whole backstory, the wife and this woman. They fled to Canada, then they moved to Minneapolis recently. I mean, this is a group coordinating online. Perhaps they moved there or were there temporarily to cause, and this is speculation, to cause a ruckus, to agitate maybe their pay. I don't know. But it's really weird because Ice Watch is particularly connected with these vehicle rammings, and they're receiving training online in these group chats. This is creepy stuff. Okay. So everybody's saying that she's just a mom, unfamiliar with the area, and she was fighting through traffic when unlawfully confronted by law enforcement officers conducting immigration policing in the area. Scared and overwhelmed, poor Renee Good. She had no choice but to flee, and she was in her vehicle when she was fleeing. I don't think that now that we have the evidence, the information that we have now, I don't even think that she was overwhelmed. I think that she purposefully took her car and drove it straight into the officer at this point. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm leaning towards, given the evidence, the information that we now have about Renee Nicole Good. Yesterday, if you tuned into the show, I just said, his training looks all by the book. She was wielding a deadly weapon. She might not have had the intent to kill him or to harm him, but she was wielding a deadly weapon, and she was ordered out of the car by law enforcement personnel, and she did not get out of the car. And, take the car out of it. Say she had a knife in her hand and she was running toward the officer. Say she had a gun in her hand and she was running towards the officer. Nobody would even be having this conversation right now. So in truth, Renee Good, she was there for a very specific purpose, disrupting federal immigration officials as they tried to carry out their jobs. These federal immigration officials involved in this incident particularly, they were digging their car out of the snow. Kind of funny. ICE agents digging their car out of the snow. Sorry. So they were digging the car out of the snow, and then they were approached and surrounded by ICE Watch, this group, which is a nationalized group, and there's pockets of these terrorists, what I would call terrorists, throughout the country. We'll get to another story here where ICE Watch was involved, but they were trying to carry out their jobs. They were digging their car out of the snow, and then they were surrounded. Ultimately, they got into their cars, got the agitators to move back. They dug their vehicle out of the snow. They were trying to drive down the road. Insert Renee, where she goes and she blocks the ICE agents' vehicles, right? Or the immigration officials' vehicles. And like I said, the immigration officials are not just there to deport illegals en masse. Okay. What they are there for, actually, and it's ramped up over the last few days, to deport Somalians who are participating in fraud. Okay. And they're DHS there is there. Not just immigration officials, but DHS officials are there investigating, prosecuting the Minnesota fraud that's been uncovered. She Good, let's get to some of Good's background. Okay. Renee Good. She moved to the area last year. She got connected with anti-ICE activist ICE Watch through her kid's 6-year-old son's charter school. Okay. So this charter school, and I'm going to read the name of the charter school and what they're all about, sounds like an indoctrination camp. Okay, so it's described as a place that puts social justice first, prioritizes involving kids in political and social activism. Now, I don't know about you, but a 6-year-old involved in social justice and political activism, probably not something a mother should be doing. Okay, there's just certain things. I mean, age appropriate. Okay, the kids don't understand the complexities of politics, and at that young of an age, especially they're not going to be capable of understanding it to the extent where they become a political activist. Okay, they don't understand what kind of ideologies and impacts Marxism, communism have. They can't possibly fathom it. They're 6. Okay. 6 years old, you should be like, I don't know. I mean, I'm all for treating kids not as adults, but treating them as little humans, right? And not shielding them from the world. And that's where we've kind of messed up, I think, as a society. We should be teaching them things out of the Bible accurately. I was 20 years old before I found out that Moses was a murderer. Okay. And that would really shocked me. I was like, in all of my Sunday school teachings, nobody really told me the truth about the Bible. They kind of kidified it, making up words, but they made it child friendly. And I think that's damaging to our youth. But creating social activists and political activists at the age of 6, that's weird. Right? Throw it in the comment section. I just think that's very bizarre. So she was a warrior. And this is what Lisa, this is a mother who attended a vigil, said. She said, quote, she was a warrior. She died doing what was right. And this is what Lisa said. Her child attends the same school. And she told this to the New York Post at a vigil where they were, paying their respects for Renee Good. Okay, so Good and her wife, Rebecca. Let's get to them. Okay, Rebecca is 40. Apparently, they sent Good's child, okay, her young son, to this Southside Family Charter School. This is a K-5 academy that offers curriculum rooted in social justice. Okay, so this is extreme. Okay, most parents don't put their 6-year-olds in political boot camp, okay, at the age of 6. So one of the founders of this school is Susie Oppenheim, okay, and she once said that the family school here, the charter school, is more than a school. It is an ever-growing, evolving, multi-generational community that is unabashedly dedicated to social justice education. This is an indoctrination camp. Renee Good enrolled her son, her young 6-year-old boy, into an indoctrination camp and was creating a social justice warrior. Okay. So it's through the Southside Family Charter School that Renee and Rebecca, they got connected with Ice Watch. And Ice Watch is a group of leftist activists, and there's Ice Watch everywhere. Okay. And we're going to get to another story. This Minnesota hotel employee, the Marriott employee, posted in a Reddit labeled Ice Watch. So this group has been known to disrupt ICE raids. They have been known to use their vehicles as weapons against law enforcement. And similar coalitions have cropped up all over the country. So it's not just in Minnesota, but it's all over the country, this Ice Watch. And the activists, what they do, it's a game. And I talked about this yesterday. And the game makers are your Tim Walz, your Jacob Frays, your Governor J.P. Pritzkers. And they're encouraging people to play this game. It's like a challenge. Go out there and film. So these activists are using their phones, apps, whistles, car horns to warn neighborhoods when ICE shows up. Okay, so it's like a game. And who's encouraging this game? It's a dangerous game because these are federal agents there to do a job, and you're impeding them from doing their job, which is an act of rebellion against the United States, and it's illegal. So Ice Watch activists are known to turn confrontational. There have been numerous instances where activists ram their cars into ICE agents, and they've done this in the past, Ice Watch. So Lisa, at this vigil, so her kid attended the same school that Renee Good's kid attended. Okay, she revealed that Good was, quote, and she revealed this to the New York Post, trained against these ICE agents, what to do, what not to do. And it's very thorough training to listen to commands, to know your rights, to whistle when you see an ICE agent. Lisa added, I know she was doing the right thing. I watched the video plenty of times, but I know in my heart the woman she was, and she was doing everything right. Let's wow. Good morning from Central Pennsylvania. I'm going to pause here, take a couple of comments. So glad that you are joining here. Total sham. The term wife is reserved for man and woman. Sorry. You are totally right. The sanctity of marriage should not be disparaged like that. I'm sorry. I'm calling her wife. Her partner, I don't know. It is like technically legal because they legalized gay marriage, which is stupid. Marriage is a religious ceremony. You do it before God, and it should be reserved for men and women. But yes, so she is friends with these people at school, Lisa. And Lisa is well aware of what Ice Watch does online. They train people thoroughly, and these coalitions are popping up all over the nation. This is a terrorist group. So unsurprisingly, we are learning that Good and her wife actually went to Canada. And this is fascinating. I think, and I'm speculating here at this point, that they went to Canada, they came to Minnesota because it's a sanctuary city, and perhaps there's some funding here. Okay. If Ice Watch has a connection with this charter school, I'd imagine that there's some money, okay, going around. And possibly members of Ice Watch are being paid to go out there and do these demonstrations and to agitate. So I wouldn't be surprised to find out that they settled in the sanctuary city of Minneapolis because there was an Ice Watch or some sort of agitation position that they could find themselves in and get paid to be essentially terrorists. Okay. That is complete speculation. But I'm looking at the tea leaves here, and I've seen this song and dance before. I've seen this movie. So her and her wife, partner, I guess is what I'll call them, not to disparage marriage in any kind of way. Her and her partner fled to Canada in 2024 after the presidential election, and then they returned to the United States and they settled in Minneapolis, the sanctuary city. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said that Good, hours before the shooting, like I said, this was ICE agents shoveling their car out of the snow, and she was participating in harassing and impeding law enforcement operations, trying to make it impossible for the ICE agents to dig their car out of the snow in Minnesota. Okay. So, look, nobody celebrates Renee Good's death, okay? But it has become abundantly clear that she could have and should have avoided engaging in an aggressive way with the ICE agents. And not only is that abundantly clear, but I think that even Rebecca, the partner, realizes that they should have been avoiding engaging in an aggressive way with ICE agents because she can be caught on tape saying it's my fault. Okay. And that's a very raw human moment there. I think for a split second, her social justice warrior goggles came off and she goes, we should have never came down here. Yeah. If you truly love someone or care about someone, you don't want them to put themselves in danger. And you express, hey, this is dangerous. Don't do that. And you don't lie to them, right? And say, oh, it's totally fine. But Renee, she let her activist views, her radical views, cloud her judgment. Rebecca let her activist views or radical views cloud her judgment. And they were both there that day, hours before the shooting, egging on these ICE agents or ICE officers. Once again, the old adage, you play stupid games, which that's what this is. Now, I don't know if they're getting paid to do this challenge by some sort of nonprofit organization. I wouldn't be surprised. A Democrat connected nonprofit organization that simultaneously lines the campaign coffers of Democrat politicians, corrupt politicians. I wouldn't be surprised to find out if Ice Watch is paid, or at least some members are paid, and that this is all a game. So then you have the corrupt Democrat politicians at the tippity top encouraging members of Ice Watch to go out there and to go film things and to alert and blow whistles and harass federal agents. Okay, but what the corrupt Democrat politicians won't tell you is that, hey, you play this stupid game, you are going to win stupid prizes. I have yet to hear a Democrat come out and say, like, if they truly thought ICE was the new Gestapo, right, they would be encouraging members of the public, a citizenry, to stay away and to flee, okay, and run away and not to engage with the Gestapo, right, who's going to zip tie you and prance you naked out into the street. Yes, Senator Jamie Duckworth talked about this. that ICE is humiliating people in the public square by pulling them out of their their houses in the middle of the night and zip tying them. The zip ties, nobody will tell you, is actually very humane, probably better than handcuffs, I'd imagine. And the reason why the zip ties exist is because they don't have enough handcuffs for everybody that they're deporting. So they zip tie. Okay. Very humane. It's fine. People make a big deal out of that, and it's really not a big deal. But we are watching play stupid games, win stupid prizes, play out before our very eyes. So I'm going to take a few comments here. Marriage is a contract with the state. Prior to it being a government contract, it is very clear that marriage is sanctified. It's a religious ceremony. And in fact, Jesus Christ at the end of the book, the Bible, he's actually a husband coming for his church, a groom coming for his church, the wife. In Revelation, it talks about that. And in the beginning, there was a marriage ceremony. You've got Adam and Eve. Okay, so it's a religious ceremony. It's something that you do before God, and it is a relationship ordained, and it's a covenant you exchange before God. So yeah, the illegals must go. Yes, thanks, Chris. I'm going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we are going to talk a little bit about this employee at the Marriott, because this is important. ICE agents, they were banned from the Hampton Inn earlier this week. They were banned from a McDonald's in Minnesota. There was an armed security guard guarding the door of a McDonald's in Minnesota, which is hilarious. And then we've got this Marriott in Minnesota. We've got a rogue employee at this hotel, and went as far as to dox ICE agents, take their personal info and post it online in a forum called, drumroll please, ICE Watch. So we're going to be right back. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. It'll just take me a minute to come back.
Real strength doesn't need applause, and real faith doesn't flex for attention. Jesus said, when you fast, don't walk around looking miserable. Try to look holy. That's not devotion. That's performance. And God doesn't reward actors. Matthew 6, verses 16 through 18, is Jesus calling men to fast in secret, where only the Father sees. Because fasting isn't about proving your discipline. It's about pursuing God with hunger. So real, you trade food for fire. You don't fast to earn points. You don't fast to make space. You weaken the flesh so the spirit gets louder. You say no to your cravings so you can say yes to something deeper. But here's the catch. It's got to be real. Not for your boys, not for social media, just you and God. In the quiet, in the dark. That's where rewards are born. In silence, in secret, in the furnace of unseen obedience. You want to be strong in public? Train in private. Fast without a stage. Pray without applause. Obey without a crowd. Your Father sees in secret, and He's the only one who reward what matters. Patriot Pump doesn't give you just energy. It keeps you focused. No fluff, no crash, just clean, hard-driving fuel for men who train with purpose and sacrifice. If you're building discipline in the dark, this is your edge. Train hard, stay sharp.
Hey, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. So do appreciate you tuning in. Kat, this ice watch. Now, this is fascinating. I didn't connect the dots there. I'm so grateful for Mr. Lopez in the comments section. Kat, this ice watch is the same as all the rapid response teams that are funded. And they are funded, like in Illinois, under the Illinois Coalition of Immigration and Refugee Rights. That's ICER. I mean, millions of dollars, taxpayer dollars, are poured into that organization. It's a nonprofit organization, and largely from what I gather on their website is that they're dedicated to providing attorneys for illegal immigrants to evade deportation. So they have something called a rapid response team. They have hotlines that they've set up. If you spot ICE, you call them. So that's fascinating. I did not connect those dots. I'm going to dig into that a little bit more. The ICE watch being the same as the rapid response teams. And I completely was speculating here about ICE watch being funded by government, by corrupt Democrat politicians. They're funneling taxpayer dollars into the nonprofits. The nonprofits are kind of setting up these ICE watch groups, these coalitions throughout the country. That's complete speculation up to this point, but Mr. Lopez, you're pointing this out. I'm going to have to do some more digging on that. Renee, she gives love a bad name. She got confused and married a woman. Yes, it's sad. Like I said, and somebody said in the comment section, separation of church and state. It is actually not. Yeah, I would encourage you to open up your U.S. Constitution. That is nowhere in the Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting free exercise thereof. So there's no national government mandated church. That's what that means. And no interference with free exercise of religion. This has nothing to do with removing God from public life. Okay, so recognizing that marriage is between man and woman, and that this is a religious ceremony, it's something that Christians do, recognizing that is not a blurring separation of church and state. Separation in church of church and state is really designed so that government doesn't come into the church. It doesn't mean that the church doesn't go into government. Establishing a national government mandated church, that is something that can be argued. But really that phrase, separation of church and state, is not in the U.S. Constitution. It was written by Thomas Jefferson. The Baptists were worried, and you have to understand the context here. This was a letter written by Thomas Jefferson to the Danbury Baptist Association. The Baptists were worried that the government might interfere with their religious freedom. Jefferson assured them that the First Amendment created a wall of separation between church and state. So it's really meant to protect the church from the state. If you were to read the letter, the primary documentation, it's not the other way around. Church can definitely be a part of the state and a part of our laws. And, we can recognize marriage as a Christian religious ceremony done before God. And we can recognize that there's a specific definition to marriage at a state level or at a government level without, violating separation of church and state. It was never meant to protect the government, separation of church and state, from religious influence. There can be a ton of religious influence in the government as long as you don't formally, and this could be even argued, as long as you don't formally establish a religion, okay? A state religion, a government mandated church. So I find it so funny when people are like separation of church and state, no. You read the primary documentation. It was a letter from Thomas Jefferson to the Danbury Baptist Association, assuring them that the government wouldn't interfere with their religious freedoms. This does not shield the government from separation of church and state, which isn't even really in the Constitution. Find me the phrase. It doesn't shield the government from religious influence. So, yeah, people are just misinformed. I would just suggest reading the primary documents, the Constitution, and the letter from 1802. It's an 1802 letter. I can share it with you if you'd like. Email me, conservativecatbarker@gmail.com. Okay, so let's get back to the show. We've got so much to get to. So I do want to get to this Minnesota employee at this Marriott. What's worse than immigration and customs enforcement agents being banned from checking into a major hotel like the Marriott, a hotel chain like the Hampton Inn, Hilton, and we'll get to that here in a second, because Hilton Hotels, they actually did a really great thing. But I'll tell you what's worse than banning and discriminating against federal agents. A rogue employee of one of these hotels, the Marriott, where they welcomed the agents. They took them in, but this rogue employee had taken it upon himself or herself, I don't know, the information to steal the personal information of these ICE agents and to take surveillance footage of these ICE agents, blow up that surveillance footage, screenshot it, put it online in a domestic terrorist, at this point I'm going to call them domestic terrorist forum, ICE Watch, put it in a forum, and to add fuel to that fire, the employee then posted those images on left-wing social media. So not just the forum with the domestic terrorists, but everywhere. And, you know, we don't have to imagine this scenario, because it actually became a reality in Minnesota, where this rogue employee doxed ICE agents. So this is a breaking story from Fox News. White House correspondent Bill Melugin, he talked about this independently owned Marriott hotel in Bloomington, Minnesota. So this is independently owned. They have ID'd and fired the employee. I don't know the employee's name. I don't know if it's a man or a woman, but they fired the employee, apparently, from this Marriott hotel, who had doxed agents by leaking their names, their emails, things that you collect, personal information when you book a hotel room, okay? And they actually went as far, this employee went as far as to screen grab images of their faces from the surveillance footage of the hotel. When they were getting checked into the front desk, there's a camera, and the images appeared, you know, on social media, but it also appeared on an anti-ICE Reddit post. Okay. And here's what Bill Melugin says. I took screenshots of the post before they deleted them on Reddit. Okay. And before the posts were deleted, and I have blurred the names and emails and faces of the agents because, you know, Bill Melugin didn't want to add fuel to the fire. The hotel in question is the Residence Inn in Bloomington. I think it's affiliated with Marriott. I don't understand, but the hotel, or the photos, appeared to be from an employee. This is from Bill Melugin at the front desk, and were posted in ICE Watch Minnesota thread on Reddit. Okay, so he shared the screenshots of these posts, blurred out the faces of obviously the ICE agents and their information in the post, but he's got the screen grabs. And the caption was, ICE is staying at the Residence Inn in Bloomington by MOA. And three males and three females are staying at this hotel. Company email and some of their names, and then they attach their emails and names and their faces. So Bill Melugin says, I reached out to Marriott last night for comment, and they referred me to the independent ownership, CSM Lodging. In a statement to Fox, CSM Lodging confirms they identified and fired the employee. Wow. So CMS Lodging, in a statement, says the privacy and safety of our guests is the utmost importance to us. Upon learning of the situation, we immediately investigate the matter, identified the person responsible for capturing these images in the post. This individual is no longer an employee of our organization. The privacy and safety of our guests is of utmost importance to us. Utmost importance to us. So we know what the left wants. Okay. The left wants ICE agents to be dead. Full stop. And this is why they bitch about ICE agents wearing masks, because they're participating in their training in these forums online. I don't know if they're meeting in person. This needs to be investigated. They probably should be designated as an official terrorist group, ICE Watch. We have to look into the funding of this as well. Are these domestic terror groups funded through nonprofit organizations that receive taxpayer dollars? And then in turn, those nonprofit organizations take those taxpayer dollars and then pay the Democrats, corrupt Democrat politicians through their campaign coffers. And, the politicians exist because the nonprofits are funneling money back into, that's money laundering. They're taking taxpayer dollars, putting it into a nonprofit, and they're essentially putting taxpayer dollars back into their campaign coffers through that nonprofit. So messed up. We've got to look into this. But they get all pissy, these anti-ICE, ICE Watch, whatever you want to call them, domestic terrorist agitators. They get all mad when the ICE agents wear masks, okay? Because their training tells them to look for their face, screenshot their face, or take pictures of their faces and post it online, take pictures of their license plates, take pictures of their vehicles, find their emails, expose them. And they want to make the ICE agents vulnerable. So what is the end goal there? They want ICE agents dead, and possibly their family members dead as well. Okay. And, these ICE agents were already vulnerable. They're already doing a very difficult job dealing with the worst of the worst in society, dealing with gang members like TDA. And, these agents do all of this, the masking. They do this to protect their identities and their personal information, because a leak of this information can be like their names, their emails, their faces. It can be tracked back to them. It can expose him or her, this ICE agent, and their family and friends. Okay. And they're already kind of exposed in a vulnerable job, dealing with violent criminals, gangsters, and it's not just their lives on the line when you're doxing them. Okay. They we're dealing with mentally unstable individuals. Okay. Like the transgender leading man who tried to break into the home of JD Vance and assassinate him. Okay. We're dealing with the kid who had planned to assassinate a Supreme Court Justice, Brett Kavanaugh, but was arrested, thank God, around Brett Kavanaugh's DC home. Look, these agents cannot afford to lose their loved ones or their own lives, okay? And they can't afford to be put at risk. That's why they wear the mask. That's why they shield their identities. And those attempting to dox the ICE agents in the Minneapolis incident here are proving exactly why they have to wear those masks, okay? And they have to shield their identity at all costs, okay? So these are very sick individuals you're dealing with. These are individuals who exist in online forums, who are perhaps being paid with taxpayer dollars through nonprofit organizations. These are very sick individuals, and it's all about the ends. Okay, so they believe that the means are justified, and they want the end goal. And like I said, the end goal is to kill ICE agents. And they believe that that is their end goal, and that is justified. And if that means doxing, and maybe a couple of the ICE agents' children are, innocents killed in the means of reaching this end goal, so be it. They're very messed up people. And I want to play this brilliant Hilton employee in Dallas. I'm going to play this clip. It's a TikTok. She's still in uniform, by the way, admitting that she doxed ICE agents, which is against the law. And she said that she doesn't care if she loses her job because she cares more about the families and unity. So meet Gia. She's an employee at Hilton Hotels in Dallas, and she posted on TikTok, apparently thinking it would be noble to dox ICE agents staying at the hotel and putting their lives at risk, and other hotel guests at risk as well. You throw those names out there, they know that they're staying at that hotel. You got these deranged transgender people a lot of the time, alphabet people going in, and they're not concerned about the lives around these ICE agents. They're not concerned about the hotel guests. Like I said, their end goal is to kill ICE agents, and they're going to do that by any means necessary. Let's take a listen to this TikTok. Here we go.
My name is Gia, and I just wanted to give a warning to y'all that there are ICE agents staying at the Hilton Inn in Dallas. Quite frankly, I don't really care if I lose my job, because I could get in trouble for posting this, but honestly I don't care, because I care more about your families and about unity. So please warn your family if you or somebody who works here is worried about their immigration status. Please let them know. Okay, the Hilton in Dallas.
Wow. Yeah. Shielding illegal immigrants from ICE agents, from federal law, from facing, the music here, which would be, hey, you're in this country illegally. Why'd you do that? Why'd you border jump? So now it's time for CSM Lodging. They came out with a statement and they said that they fired the employee who did this doxing in Minnesota by taking screen grabs of the surveillance footage, posting it in ICE Watch on a Reddit forum. They need to go further. They need to turn this individual into the FBI. And they need to give him or her a mugshot, the FBI. They need to perp walk this individual, and the DOJ needs to mount a speedy trial. Okay, because there's got to be swift consequences for doxing like this of ICE agents, because you're putting them at risk, but you're also putting the public at risk, these ICE agents' families at risks, and these unhinged factions will just keep upping the ante, doxing these individuals if there's not swift consequences. And we need to know more about this individual who posted it in ICE Watch. What's his connection to ICE Watch? What is ICE Watch all about? And the FBI needs to get on that. So let me shift gears. I've got another story I want to get to here today. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this out with your friends. Let's talk about Hilton. Okay, so I've got to give credit where credit's due. The Hilton. I regularly, you guys know me, I slam corporations when they go woke, if they buy into the woke ideology, the destructive progressive ideology, whether that's, Cracker Barrel or Bud Light, Target, Jaguar, just to name a few. It's only fair that when a corporation does something right, that I call that out and I applaud them. So it would appear that Hilton Worldwide, now that woman who works for Hilton Hotels, I don't know anything about her, but they shouldn't fire her immediately for doxing ICE agents and for helping illegal immigrants evade federal prosecution. Okay. So Hilton Worldwide, it appears that they have stepped up to the plate after the Department of Homeland Security reported that a location in Minneapolis had refused to allow ICE agents to stay there. So DHS, they were furious with the chain. They said no room at the inn, and they tweeted and they said that it was discriminatory, that it was anti-law enforcement, and they let the Hilton know that they were unhappy in no uncertain terms. They made it very clear that they were unhappy that their ICE agents were denied a stay at this inn. But then a surprising thing happened. Hilton actually cut ties with that Hampton Inn, the franchise, and said that they don't stand for nonsense and that it is a welcoming place for all. So on Thursday, the Grim Reaper, in the form of a giant crane, actually came out to that chain, came out to that location, and there was a crane, and this rogue franchise had their sign completely demolished. So let me share this with you. Get a kick out of it. Here's the tweet. ICE says how it started, how it's going. So this was, they posted the emails between the DHS and Hilton, or they posted the emails, and, there were some internal emails that they had posted talking about how they weren't going to allow ICE agents at this Hilton. Okay. And then you go over to the next slide, or the next picture. Here it is, Hampton Inn, which has the, Hilton logo at the bottom. They're removing the sign. They're cutting ties with the franchise, which is really kind of cool. And I want to be clear. At first, I was really peeved off with Hilton because despite issuing that statement, very early on that said like, hey, we're a welcoming place for all, Hampton Inn was exposed for still, even after that statement, denying ICE agents a stay at the Hampton. So photos have emerged showing a crane removing the sign of Hampton Inn Hotel in Minneapolis area, allegedly refused to accommodate U.S. ICE agents and immigration officers. The formerly branded Hilton branded property in Lakeville was stripped of its Hilton label by the hotel chain. On Tuesday morning, after a video surfaced appearing to show that the location had continued to deny ICE immigration officers, despite Hilton saying that the venue had apologized and that the properties were open to everyone and that they did not tolerate discrimination. So like I said, on Tuesday, you guys can actually go to the archives. Nick Sortor, he's an influencer, independent journalist. He goes into the hotel, and I played it in its entirety. He goes up to the front desk. The front desk officer, he shows them the statement from Hilton saying like, hey, we don't discriminate. It's open to everybody. But despite that, the front office manager still denied DHS officers a stay at the hotel. Okay, despite Hilton coming out originally with that statement saying that, hey, we allow everyone. And I was kind of peeved off because I was like, okay, Hilton, which is it? So it turns out that they cut ties completely with the franchise after that incident on Tuesday, after that video had surfaced, proving that they were still denying ICE agents. The images here I showed you show the sign being lifted off its supports by a crane. And the crane was set up in the hotel's parking lot. Hilton did not immediately respond to requests for comment from a Fox News Digital. They had reached out asking Hilton to comment about the crane. It's unclear who is operating the hotel. Now, like I said, influencer Nick Sortor, he exposed the fact that Hampton was still turning away law enforcement even after Hilton had told them to stand down. He, of course, celebrated on X. I will share Nick Sortor's celebratory post. So this is really kind of funny and definitely worth watching. Like, massive victory, he says. The sign, the former Hilton hotel I exposed for continuing to refuse service to ICE agents, is now being taken down. So look at this. video, by the way. I'll play a little bit of it. I'll play.
Causing problems. It's just it's 10, 11 o'clock now. So
I get that. Yeah.
So at this point in the video,
thank you.
what this guy does, he leaves for several minutes. He goes to talk to ownership. Nick Sortor is posing as a DHS officer, and he comes back.
Yeah. So nobody's answering my calls right now.
Okay.
Because of the time. But
Gotcha. Okay, so this is Everpeak though, and they said Everpeak Hospitality has moved swiftly to address this matter as it was inconsistent with our policy of being a welcoming place for all. We are in touch with the impacted guests to ensure they are accommodated without discriminating against any individuals or agencies and apologize to those impacted. It's kind of long. I don't know. I was kind of surprised. I thought we were good to go. Like I said, not everybody with DHS is immigration. That's just
right. Yeah, I get that, but it's
it's also a fraud investigation. I guess we'll just say as well. So.
Yeah, but
okay, no problem at all. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem. Not your fault.
Answer the phone.
So still denied DHS officers, even despite, Hilton telling them, hey, Hampton Inn, you got to stand down. I reported on how Hilton was and has always virtue signaled. And I was expecting them to not do the right thing here and to shield Hampton from any kind of accountability. They've had virtue signaling type statements in the past, but they were kind of slow to respond to the bad behavior at the Hampton Inn. They did respond, and then they came out with a statement saying, we're welcoming to all. And then the Hampton continued to refuse services to ICE agents. And initially I thought it was going to come up, or it was like weak sauce, and it was like no consequences at all for Hampton. And I didn't think that the statement was that strong. And appears that I was wrong. They did the right thing in the end. And, that's certainly something that we haven't seen from giant corporations before. So the pendulum is swinging, as I like to say. And for at least for right now, now there was somebody commenting. They said, in Dallas, there's this big hotel. The Antoli Hotel is a very big hotel in Dallas. She was doxing, and that is a Hilton affiliate, I guess. Don't know what happened to that woman. She, made a video and she goes, I'm probably going to get fired for this. And she was doxing. She was saying that ICE agents were staying there, and she was warning employees and guests that had illegal immigration status to get out of there because ICE was staying there. So not a mix-up. There was doxing going on at the Dallas Hilton as well. So we'll have to see if anything comes of that, if Hilton actually fires her. I don't know as of right now, but as far as the Hampton Inn in Minnesota, Hilton did the right thing. I salute you, Hilton Hotels, for doing the right thing. We don't see corporations, especially in the most recent years, do the right thing. They bend to the woke mob. Good for you, Hilton, for right now. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, cats and kittens, liberty lovers, and long-suffering Illinois taxpayers, welcome back to the Conservative Cat Show. Go ahead, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this out with a friend, tell them to subscribe today. The Conservative Cat Show is the place where we tell the truth, we follow the money, and we ask the question Springfield never wants answered. Here's the question Springfield never wants answered. Why do they have billions, $55 billion about in their budget, and that's ballooned since Governor J.B. Pritzker took office from $30 billion to $50 billion. Okay, insanity. Roughly, they have billions for their priorities, but you never have enough money for your priorities. That's the question I'm asking today, because today we're talking about something that affects everybody, and this has to deal with your property tax bill. Okay, we've got the highest property taxes in the nation in Illinois, and there's crumbling sidewalks, crumbling infrastructure, understaffed police departments, understaffed fire departments that are just scraping by. And I want to point this out because the Illinois policy, they did an analysis on this. Illinois stole $10.9 billion from local governments. Okay, this is diabolical. And they turned around. They stole the money from the local municipalities. And then they turned around and said, well, blame your mayor, blame your local municipality. And I'm not going to shield poorly run governments at a local level. Bloomington is poorly run. Normal is poorly run. Their priorities are all out of whack. Bloomington, in Illinois, $25 million for a damn public library. Public libraries are completely, it should go obsolete. We have the internet. Okay. Right now in the General Assembly, they're considering turning public libraries into like mental health facilities. They're drugging up people with Narcan. Okay. They're turning them into, essentially opioid dens where druggies can come in and get their fix of Narcan. Okay. That's how irrelevant public libraries have become. So they turn around, they tell you to blame your mayor, although they stole the state $10.9 billion from these locales, from the local municipalities. So you don't blame the governor, don't blame the General Assembly, don't blame the people who actually changed the law. And we're going to get to it. Nope. They want you to blame your town, your elected officials. They're left holding the bag, and they're left facing the political heat. Okay. Now, rightfully so in some places, like Normal and Bloomington, very corrupt. They're funding underpasses. Their priorities are all out of whack. They're funding pools. Okay. For those of you who don't live in Illinois, you can maybe swim in a pool 2 months out of the year. Funding the pool, the public pool, to the tune of $15 million. Absolute insanity. So let's rewind the tape here. What am I talking about? I am talking about how Illinois, we've got to go back a couple of decades, 1969, actually, to be exact. There was a deal made in Illinois. And this was a covenant, okay, between the local governments and the state government. Okay, so local government said, fine, we're not going to impose our own local income taxes. And Springfield said, in return, if you don't impose your own local income taxes, in return, we're going to give you what's called the Local Government Distributive Fund, and we'll give you 10% of the state's income tax revenue. Okay. Now, this is the LGDF, and it was supposed to be 10% of the state income tax revenue. That money was supposed to go to these local municipalities, your town. It's supposed to keep your property taxes down. This is revenue. It's supposed to be revenue that the local government uses for things like infrastructure and public safety, basic necessities that are needed in a town. Okay, infrastructure, water treatment, things like that. So the money was supposed to go to these local municipalities, and the intent here was to keep the property taxes down. Okay, it was supposed to fund police, fire, roads, snowplows, streetlights. It was supposed to keep government close to the people. Okay, this money not be hoarded by the capital. Okay, this money. That's why they gave 10%. That's generous. A good amount. Okay, and for years that deal had held on. Okay, from 1969 all the way to 2012. Okay, and then there was a budget crisis under, of course, a Democrat governor, Pat Quinn. And what did Pat Quinn say and Springfield say? They said, well, this is temporary. It's a short-term deal. We're going to cut it. We're going to cut that 10%. We're going to drop that LGDF from 10% to 7%. So you guys aren't going to be getting as much money. So when they're not getting as much money, they're going to try to make up for that money in the form of property taxes and raising your property taxes. If you're curious as to why your property taxes are so high, it's because of this. There's multiple reasons, but one of the reasons being this. The revenue, the sources for the local governments had dried up a little bit, and it's not fair because they had promised that they weren't going to impose local income taxes, okay? And that was the deal made in 1969. So You already know how the story ends. They did that in 2012. They dropped it from 10 to 7, and they never fixed it or put it back to the original 10. Okay, so according to a new Illinois policy analysis, since 2012, local governments have lost $10.9 billion. That was money that was not supposed to go to Springfield, but it was supposed to go to your local municipalities for aging infrastructure, for crumbling sidewalks, for your police and fire. Okay. That money was never supposed to go to Springfield, but did in 2012. And it was supposed to be temporary, but here we are in 2026, and it's still 7%. So in 2024 alone, restoring the LGDF fund to 10% would have sent $1.17 billion back to cities and towns. What could your city do with $1.17 billion? I mean, it's not going to that one specific town, but you spread that across the cities and towns, $1 billion. I mean, that's a good chunk of money for your city or town. That money is now in the state budget. And the state budget, along with that revenue source, they've passed other taxes, higher gas taxes in 2019. You had Republicans and Democrats passing a doubling of the gas tax. Okay. They've ballooned this budget to over $50 billion since Governor J.B. Pritzker took office. It used to be $30 billion. Okay. So they're spending like crazy. And it's just they're just greedy. They want the, extra 3%. They don't want to give that 3% back to the locales. They're going to come up with all kinds of ways. They've increased prices at the tollways just recently. What else? I mean, so many taxes. Okay, they're talking about a delivery tax where they're going to charge you $1.50 for getting a pizza delivered. Okay, to cover CTA, the Chicago Transit Authority. So what happens when Springfield keeps the money? Okay, they keep this 3% that is supposed to go to the local governments. Local governments, their police pensions don't stop existing. Their firefighters, they're not working for free. The snow's still falling. They still need snow plows. The pipes are still breaking. The water treatment centers, they still need fixing. So these cities and towns are forced to raise property taxes. Now, what the local government should be doing, rather than raising property taxes, is cutting and going bare minimum. If the state is going to do this thing and they're going to cut your revenue, it's kind of like your boss approaches you and gives you a pay cut. Okay, what do you start to do as an individual? Well, I'm not going to go to the movies on Saturday night. I'm going to cook at home 5 days a week, or in comparison to, I was only cooking at home 3 days a week and then I was going out the other 2. You start making cuts and prioritizing. Okay. And that's what the local government should be doing. A lot of these towns feel like their hands are tied and that they are forced to raise property taxes. And they kind of are, because those pensions are really bad. Police pensions, firefighter pensions, teachers. You've got the freaking schools, which they get like 90% of your property tax bill. Okay, what you pay in property taxes, it goes to the school right away. And the schools, we know that they could cut administration. There's no reason Barry Riley, former superintendent of Bloomington District 87, should be collecting a $200,000 pension. Okay. So there's cuts that can be made at the local level, at the school level, to, make it to where you don't have to raise the property taxes as much. These local governments, these cities and towns, they have been borrowing money to cover their pensions. They've been adding fees. And then you're getting tired. You're getting pissed off because the taxpayers are having to pass referendums that are constantly asked. And I know that this is true in Bloomington and in McLean County. They just passed a local sales tax of 1% to go to the freaking schools. And that's to cover the pensions, because the pension crisis is insane. It's $145 billion in pension debt at the state level. So what they've done is they go to voters via referendum if you're a non-home rule municipality, and they go to you via referendum and they ask you, pass this local sales tax for the schools, pass yet another tax hike for the kids. And, we're yelling at, not the governor in Julasco, not the House Speaker of the General Assembly, Chris Welch in Julasco, or at church. We're not yelling at the bureaucrats in Springfield and the people who passed this law back in 2012, bringing it down from 10 to 7. We're not yelling at those folks. We are yelling at our local municipalities. And it is somewhat justified, because there are municipalities out there that are not prioritizing correctly. And I'll get to that here in just a second. But State Representative Stephen Reich, he's in the Center Square, quoted, he says, people don't yell at Springfield officials at the grocery store. They yell at their mayor. Yes. So here's where it gets even uglier. The LGDF, this fund, okay, the 10%, which has been cut to 6-7%, something like that. The LGDF is actually 25% of that. So it goes to the municipality, 25% of what they get from that state income tax revenue. That 7%, 25% of that go to the day-to-day municipal operations. Okay, so that's your fire, that's your police, that's your basic infrastructure like water and sewer. Okay, so places like Chicago, they can kind of invent new taxes, and they do. They invent all kinds of crazy taxes there in Chicago. And, you got millions of people there, and they spread across millions. They hide in a utility bill or a parking fee. And they're in trouble because their priorities are all out of whack, right? But these smaller towns, like say in central Illinois and southern Illinois, they don't have that luxury of taxing millions of people. And that's why in a lot of these towns, you see things like aging infrastructure, water that tastes terrible. I think Leroy, Illinois is notorious for terrible tasting water and nasty water. You see shrinking populations because people don't want to stay in a community where they can't drink the water. They've got fixed pension costs, limited tax bases, okay, unlike Chicago, millions of people. And then, the voters have been stretched to a breaking point and they're fleeing. In Chicago, people are fleeing Chicago as well, but they stick around because they've got this huge tax base and they can tax millions of people and kind of spread it across. And Chicago's still hurting. They're in budget deficits all the time. Okay, they can't make themselves whole, even with the millions of people in the tax base being so large. And why is that? It's because, for example, Chicago Public Schools, they pay for things like balloon displays. Millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars on balloon displays. I could get into that story, but their priorities are all out of whack. Same thing with CPS. Their pensions are crazy for their teachers. They've got administrators, DEI directors, all that nonsense, and we're paying exorbitant salaries for those folks. So in Chicago, that's why, people are leaving Chicago as well. They feel very taxed in Chicago as well. It should be theoretically easier in Chicago because their tax base is so big. But it's not. But it's really bad for these small communities. And that's might be why you're noticing, hey, for sale signs in your small community, because things like the water tastes terrible or there's no police. Okay, so non-home rule communities, they can't just snap their fingers and raise taxes. Home rule communities can, and they don't have to go to referendum. Non-home rule communities have to go to referendum. And I'm not trying to, justify these local governments constantly going to local referendum and asking you for your hard-earned money and begging for your hard-earned money. I'm not trying to justify that, because I really do think that most of these municipalities over the years have had misplaced priorities, but they need voter approval, the non-home rule communities, and the voters are saying enough. Some of these sales taxes, some of these tax increases are not getting passed. Okay. And towns are hitting a boiling point. And, this is why you see property taxes skyrocketing. There's a plethora of reasons. The LGDF fund going from 10 to 7, the administration, the bureaucrats in these schools that are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in the form of a salary. That's just insanity. And in the form of a pension, they're not even there anymore. And you hear the mayors, you hear the local government saying, like, we're trying to hold the line. And to an extent, I don't think they're lying, but and that they are trapped to an extent because they don't have that state income tax revenue. But I will say in Bloomington, I know that they raise taxes. And like, being that you don't have your local distributive fund, okay, local government distributive fund, and it's not at full funding, so the 10%, and this has been a thing since 2012, you should have been thinning out your spending from 2012 to 2026. Okay. And forgive me if I'm not sympathizing with some of these local government officials who say, like, we're trying everything we can. We need more money. We're going to referendum. We need to implement a local sales tax for 1%, 1% sales tax to go to the schools because we just can't cover the pension costs. Okay. Forgive me, because Bloomington, and I know this, they spent $25 million on a library. What was it? The Bloomington Streetscape. Hold on. I think it's like Bloomington, Illinois. Streetscape cost. I think it's like $100 million. It's insane. I'm sorry. Oh, well, this is just like the initiative. Okay, the phase 1. This is probably going to cost even more. They're saying that it's going to cost $60 million for this total for this initiative. I thought it was more than that. It probably will wind up being more than that because, let's be honest, materials, right? They always say, oh, it's going to be 60 million, and then it winds up like doubling somehow. But they've spent 25 million on the stupid library, okay, the public library. They spent $60 million on the downtown Bloomington streetscape. They spent $15 million on the O'Neill pool, a public pool where residents only swim in it maybe 2 months out of the year. Like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, forgive me if I'm not sobbing for the local governments. Although I do think that has to be restored, and that might help with some property tax relief. I would like to think that some communities would use that as property tax relief and to cut back taxes at a local level if they had that LGDF. Now, a place like Bloomington, where it's run by Democrats, Normal, where it's all run by Democrats, say hypothetically that LGDF is restored. They're just going to take that money and throw it towards garbage. Okay, and throw it towards misplaced priorities, and they won't cut back the property because they're not in the business. Government is typically not in business of cutting taxes and taking revenue away. The town of Normal, they're paying like an exorbitant salary. She just got another increase, Pam Race, in the town of Normal. Over $300,000 salary. She's got cars, company cars. I mean, or a government issued car. And it's just crazy at this point. So, even if we restored that LGDF, some local governments are just going to take that money and spend it, and not cut the property taxes. So, lawmakers now, they're floating this idea of letting municipalities impose their own local income taxes. So I don't know how they would do that. There'd be some political maneuvering involved because this was in 1969. I think it was a state constitution thing. It's a state It's a tax structure translation. Springfield broke the deal. Okay. And now we're going to break you. Okay. So they broke their deal. They were supposed to give 10%. They're only giving 7 as of 2012. And now they're going to say, well, instead of losing money, us losing money because the state running budget deficits all the time, they're broke. Instead of us losing that revenue and giving it back to you, you guys can impose your own income tax at a local level. Illinois already has some of the highest taxes in the nation, worst outmigration rate. So one of the worst outmigration rates. Families are fleeing to places like Indiana, Tennessee, Florida, Texas, South Carolina. I think South Carolina was deemed like number 5. You guys know that I've led Pritzker stand because I just couldn't take it anymore. The solution is here. It's not another layer of income tax, okay? Because as Patrick from the Illinois Policy puts it, Patrick Andreessen, he says we'd just be feeding the fire. So they could impose their local income taxes, but you're just getting those taxpayers to an even higher boiling point, I guess, and they're going to flee, and the tax base is going to get smaller, and you're going to still be in this sticky situation where you can't cover pension costs or anything because your tax base just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So that's not reform implementing a local income tax. Really, they've got to focus on spending, not only at a local level and prioritizing their spending at a local level, but they've got to do it at a state level where they don't need the extra 3% that they're taking from the LGDF. Okay, they've got to cut the spending. And, you know, it's kind of like saying if we were to do local income taxes, that'd be like saying, okay, we're bleeding. We've been bleeding for 12 plus years and more leeches are going to help. No. We've got to restore the local government distributive fund. But we've also got to talk about the elephant in the room. Why the hell is Illinois running a $50 billion budget? We've ballooned that from $30 billion in just a few years. Representative Reich said the quiet part out loud. He said, we spent $1 billion to ensure illegal immigrants had health care. Over $1 billion. Some people estimate that we spent like $3 billion. Okay, that's $1 billion that could have gone to local governments. That was a single line item for people who aren't citizens. Okay, that $1 billion could have went to towns who can't afford police officers. And, you know, you need to let that sink in because we don't have a revenue problem. We have a values problem. We have a spending problem. And the Bible tells us your treasure, where your treasure is, your heart will also be, will be also. So Springfield's heart is not with local families or local governments and with you, the Illinoisan. They are all about centralized power and their political projects. They are all about the illegal immigrant and restoring the LGF to 10%. We need to do that. We need to honor the original deal. We need to put that money back where it belongs, close to the people, because what that does, it does 3 critical things. Number 1, it relieves pressure on property taxes. It could, if your local government isn't loaded with a bunch of Dems. Number 2, it respects local control. Number 3, it stops Springfield from playing shell games. This was never Springfield's money. And it was always meant, this local distributive fund was always meant to keep local taxes down. And I don't think that they're ever going to restore it. And here's why. Because that would mean Springfield would have to give up a source of revenue. They're never going to do that. And they'd also have to give up control because really that's what this is all about. This is centralized power and they are not going to give up money willingly. Okay. So the next time your property bill comes in the mail, it goes up, you know, your mayor says his hands are tied. Think about it for a little while. Look at what your municipality is doing at a local level, how they're spending your money. And if he says his hands are tied and they have been running lean as a local government, maybe believe him, because the next time Springfield's going to tell you, oh, it's complicated. It's complicated. Remember this. Illinois didn't run out of money. Okay. They've had the revenue. They were the ones who broke the promise. The state government broke the promise, and you're paying for it at a local level for the things that you really care about, which is your public safety, your roads, your infrastructure, your street lights, your police, your fire. So that you're paying for it and it's their fault. Remember that the state. And if your local governor actually is, he got his hands tied, look at what your local government is spending money on. Are they spending money on pools, libraries, unnecessary infrastructure, like a streetscape? Are they doing those things? And if they are doing those things, then your mayor's hands aren't tied. He could prioritize his spending, keep your property tax bill low, or your taxes low. But if he is running it lean, if your mayor, your local officials are running lean and they're not doing these silly little projects locally, then maybe listen to him when he says his hands are tied, because that 10-7, it's a big hit. $10.9 billion that our local governments missed out on because the state stole it. All right, smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. Subscribe to the channel. It's nice to have a library and swimming pool as long as they're not stealing money while building. Yeah, well, I'd imagine that favorable contractors got those deals. I don't know the ins and outs of Bloomington specifically, but a lot of times what happens in your local government, they allocate millions of dollars to these silly little projects nobody really asks for. And really, these projects, it's a way to pay their friends. That's what usually happens. It's a contractor who they like and who will help them when it comes time for them to run again. Yes. Okay, let's see here. I am going to shift gears. We've got one more story. Subscribe to the channel. Be sure to subscribe. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. I don't want to take a break. I'm just going to take a sip of water if that's all right by you guys. I got this cup. I'm obsessed with Stanley. I'm your basic white girl. I got this cup for Christmas, but that was a big story. So I need a quick little sip. Are you guys drinking coffee this morning? How do you take your coffee? Throw it in the comment section. Okay. Let me get to this. And I know that you guys have been asking me about this story. It's just in as of yesterday, like late yesterday. Details are kind of scarce. But I've got some. The local media outlets, they were reporting last night. And I woke up this morning and I'll provide you what I found out this morning. Last night, I was keeping an eye on this. 2 people were shot by CPB, Customs and Border Patrol agents. Okay. So they were shot on Thursday, yesterday, in Portland, Oregon. So this story comes out of Portland, Oregon, according to local TV outlets, KATU. U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents shot 2 people in Portland on Thursday afternoon, according to FBI, Portland police, and city officials. Portland police said at 2:24 p.m. that they had learned that the man who had been shot called to request help near Northeast 146th Avenue and East Burnside. Arriving, officers found a man and a woman wounded from apparent gunshot wounds. Police confirmed federal agents were involved. Okay, so they had learned a man had been shot and they requested help. So somebody had called the police, the Portland police, the local police, to respond to the shooting involving federal agents. Portland police chief is calling for calm after the incident, which comes on the heels of what happened, obviously, in Minnesota, where this anti-ICE agitator, this ICE Watch woman, activist, Renee Good, she ran her car, her SUV, into an ICE agent and was killed by gunfire. So this happened yesterday in Portland. Portland Police Chief Bob Day urged calm amid a heightened emotion. Following a deadly ICE officer involved shooting in Minneapolis on Wednesday. So he said, "Hey, we need some calm in Portland, being that our emotions are really high because of the shooting in Minneapolis." So here's what Day said, the police chief in Portland. He says, quote, "We are still in the early stages of this incident." This is what he said yesterday. "We understand the heightened emotion and tension many are feeling in wake of the shooting in Minneapolis. But I'm asking that the community remain calm as we work to learn more." The Portland FBI initially tweeted out information about the situation, but then they took the tweet down. So this is the information that they had shared, and then they took it down, which is odd, which is why I say information is scarce. I think that they knew that these people were TDA, and I'm going to get to this here in just a second. They were TDA members. But they kept calling them 2 individuals wounded, and this remains an ongoing investigation led by the FBI. Please follow this thread for updates regarding the matter. But they deleted this. Portland FBI, kind of corrupt. Maybe they found out that, oh, they're TDA members. Let's try to bury this and, don't come back to this thread because we really don't want to tell you that these 2 individuals were TDA members. Trenday Agregua. This is a Venezuelan gang. So the Portland FBI originally tweeted out information about the shooting that resulted in 2 people dying, who later we're going to find out TDA members. According to Andy No yesterday, he was extensively reporting on this, and he has been there extensively reporting in Portland for years. He's reported on the Portland rioters. He was huge in 2020, reporting on the Portland rioters, and he's been there over the last several years. And he, at the time yesterday, had an unconfirmed report that the CPD or the CPB or CBP agents, so the Border Patrol agents, they were allegedly being run over, eerily similar to what Renee Good did in Minnesota. Okay, so anti-ICE accounts have been circulating screenshots alleging that a 911 dispatcher leaked to them information about a call for police assistance. So the call log shows that a 911 call from Border Patrol stated that a husband and wife who were shot almost ran agents over. Okay, so ABC News is reporting that the shooting occurred East Burnside and 141 East Avenue. Okay, so this all happened last night, and I'm going to share with you Andy No's reporting here of the 911 call. He says, and let me make sure that you guys can see it. Yep. 2 people have been shot by Border Patrol during an immigration operation in Portland, Oregon. Anti-ICE accounts have circulated screenshots alleging that the 911 dispatcher leaked to them information about a call for police assistance. The call log shows 911 call from Border Patrol agents stated that a husband and wife were shot. The husband and wife who were shot almost ran ICE agents over. ABC News is reporting that the shooting occurred East Burnside and 141 or 141 or 141st Avenue. Sorry. So this is the dispatch call, and there was just when I was following this last night, it was so hard to keep up because I think that they were all trying to run cover of who these 2 people were. Okay, we don't know the condition of these 2 people. I still don't know if they died. I'm looking for that. But anytime you've got TDA involved, the mainstream media tries to bury it. Okay, Had Renee Good been killed by an illegal immigrant, it wouldn't even be news. We wouldn't even hear about it. So they're trying to bury this, and you're starting to see, people like Andy No go out there and try to find the details on this, but they bury it. The FBI, even the Portland FBI, they put up a tweet and then they took it down. Okay, so Portland, they have been the scene of anti-ICE demonstrations for years, months. They have been the town or city for anti-ICE demonstrations. And I've previously reported numerous clashes there between agitators and Portland police and federal agents. DHS said that the two that were shot are believed to be members. So this is the update. They are believed to be members of Tren de Aragua. This is a gang. Okay. Now, U.S. Border Patrol agents were conducting a targeted vehicle stop in Portland. So they figured out probably that these individuals were TDA and this was targeted. And the passenger of the vehicle it was the target, and the passenger of the vehicle was a Venezuelan illegal alien affiliated with the transnational Tren de Aragua prostitution ring. Okay. And they were involved in a recent shooting in Portland, or that this individual's involved in a recent shooting in Portland. Okay. So the vehicle driver is believed to be a member of the vicious Venezuelan gang TDA. When agents identified themselves to the vehicle occupants, the driver had weaponized the vehicle and was going to ram into these ICE agents, and they attempted to run the law enforcement agents over. Fearing for his life, the IJ and for his safety and his fellow agents, the agent fired a defensive shot, and then the driver drove off with the passenger fleeing from the scene. The situation is evolving, and more information is going to, be coming out. So, I don't know where these people are, if they actually got killed. They were shot at, these two people, but the mainstream media, they were trying to say that this is a husband and wife. No, the driver and the passenger was the target of ICE agents. They stopped the vehicle. They identified themselves. After their identification, the driver drives off and tries to weaponize the vehicle against the ICE agents, subsequently causing one of the ICE agents to fire defensive shots. And that's all I know at this point, because this thing is getting buried because the mainstream media, they love gang members, okay? Illegal alien gang members in Portland. They don't want to be arrested. They don't want to be deported. And then they try to run over the cops. Okay. And they get shot in response. And Democrat politicians and the mainstream media, they're going to side with the gangster here, and they're going to bury this story. And they do this every time because they are enemies of American civilization. They hate America. I do want to play this clip. This is officials in Portland talking about the incident. Here we go.
Standing here today, united as a state, wanting peace and safety in our communities. We are all shaken and outraged by another terrible, unnecessary, violent event instigated by the reckless agenda of the Trump administration. This time in our own state, in our largest city, coming just one day after the tragedy in Minnesota.
Exhausting. So exhausting. Bottom line, this is an election year, and they rile people up with this sort of rhetoric. They're not being honest here. They took to the podium. They didn't know any of the details about these people being members of TDA, the driver being an official member, the passenger being connected to the transnational gang. It's an election year. They're going to agitate. They need good protests to rile up their base, and it's all a big game. And the challenge is to dox ICE agents and federal agents. The challenge is to harm ICE agents and federal agents by any means necessary, even if that means there's casualties when going after these ICE agents, whether that's their children, their family members, bystanders. What happened in Minneapolis with Renee Good could have turned really ugly really fast. I mean, she was weaponizing a vehicle against an ICE agent. What if she had weaponized a vehicle against the ICE agents and all the bystanders? We're dealing with mentally ill people who survive online and live online in these forums like ICE Watch. They're attending ICE Watch meetings and getting together. Like, this is domestic terrorism, and they are enemies of American civilization. So smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I will be back Monday morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. And you guys can subscribe right now and visit Patriot Pump Energy to support the program, and patriotpumpenergy.com. Buy your bottle of premium pre-workout today. You guys be blessed. Have a safe weekend. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Love you.